Welcome to Service Titans, the podcast where we dive deep into the inspiring journeys of Black men within the AmeriCorps community. From serving in classrooms to rebuilding neighborhoods, these are the stories of passion, purpose, and resilience. Join us as we amplify the voices of members of the AmeriCorps community and share their triumphs, challenges, and the impact they've made in their communities. Whether you're a seasoned AmeriCorps veteran or someone considering service, this is the space to explore, reflect, and be inspired. Get ready to be uplifted, empowered, and connected. This is Service Titans.
Michael, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you with us today. You've dedicated so much of your life to serving others and making a difference. But before we dive into that work, I'd love to start at the beginning. What experiences or people in your early life shaped your sense of purpose and your commitment to service?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this platform. I am incredibly excited about this conversation today. And thank you for your lifetime of service and dedicating your life to giving back to kids and communities that so desperately need a leader like yourself. So thank you for that. When I think about my beginning, I grew up with teen parents. My parents were both 16 years old when I was born. And the older I get, I'm almost 46 years old. The older I get, I cannot imagine that 16-year-old successfully raised a child. But my mother, and I'll give her most credit, my father's okay, but my mother was smarter than the average bear. I don't know where she got the wisdom she had at that young age. They were teen parents. We were poor. We did not have a whole lot of money. We depended on government services from times. I remember times where the lights didn't turn on. I remember times where the heat wasn't working. I also remember a community that just took care of one another, that gave their last to take care of each other. And while we didn't have a lot of money, we had a lot of love. We had a lot of connection. I lived in a neighborhood where I could knock on my neighbors' doors. I could ride my bike in their backyards. And so when I think about my upbringing, I think about my faith community. I grew up in the Pentecostal church. And so if you know anything about the Pentecostal, we love church. We're there all the time, many days a week. Don't let there be a revival. You're there every day. And so I think about my Sunday school teachers. I think about the van drivers. I think about those folks that, just watered into me, and also where it helped me develop a sense of purpose and faith. I think about my family. Again, we didn't have a whole lot, but if a field trip was coming up and my mother didn't have the money, my uncle might have had the money. My Aunt Lillian might have made my lunch to go on that trip. And so we were just a family that just took care of one another. That, I had a past partner who used to say to me, you don't say I love you to your grandmother when you say bye. I was like, we weren't an I love you family. But we showed love. We showed love for each other. I knew they were going to be there for me through thick or thin. And so I think about faith. I think about my family. But when I think about the career path that I have, I think about the Family Center Boys and Girls Club at 100 Acorn Street in Springfield, Massachusetts. And that's where I was every waking minute. I wasn't in school or church from the time I was about 8 years old. That's where I got this other set of aunts and uncles, people who loved me, who kept me in line. I remember Carol Rawson, who was the deputy director of the club. She would say, Mikey's home when I walked into the club. They taught us to serve at a very early age. We were giving out food to the elderly as a part of the SHARE program. We were down at the soup kitchen. We were beautifying the neighborhood. They taught me that I had something to give back in a world that was saying that I wasn't enough. And so when I think about my upbringing and what shaped me, it was that community that so many people would have looked at as not having enough, but it had everything and more. Even more when I look at some of my very affluent friends right now, they're trying to recreate what I had in my low community with all of their resources. And I feel incredibly blessed to have had that community that I did.
Michael, thanks so much for sharing that. And I think as we get older, it's just a reminder of just the amazing thing our parents were able to do to kind of just keep the family going, but also just the importance of the village. And I think you sort of eloquently highlighted that there were so many people who played a contributive role in the man that you are today. I want to kind of double down on one component of that conversation, just this idea of service. And I know as we kind of started around both our commitments to service, but I've learned that can mean so much for so many people. So I want to ask, like, what does service mean to you? Like beyond volunteerism or job title? Like when you think of the root of service, like what does that mean to you?
Well, it's hard for me to think about service without thinking about my roots in faith. I think service is our responsibility to one another. It's that golden rule that shows up in all religions of Abrahamic faiths. It's that idea that Dr. King talked about, that we are all inextricably linked, right? What happens to one of us happens to all of us. You know, President Obama used to talk about this idea that we are a nation that believes our neighbors' children are all of our children. And so
Mhm.
that's what service is to me. You know, President Kennedy said, to whom much is given, much is required. I don't know how they defined much. To me, that's not like you got a whole lot of money. Much is life. Much is the ability to get up and wake up every day and have a family that loves you. So much was given to me, so I have to give back. And it's this idea that any day, you know, we look at the government shutdown right now. There are folks that had good government jobs, as we would say in the Washington, D.C. area, and had great jobs a year ago. They were managing big teams. And these past couple weeks, they may have found themselves in a food line. You never know when you are going to find yourself in need. So in those times when you have much to give, when you have time to give, when you have food to give it all, because one day that might be coming back to you. So that's what service means to me. It is a responsibility, but it is also a joy. It is a joy. It gets you out of your funk. The Surgeon General under President Biden, Vivek Murthy, called service part of the prescription for America's loneliness epidemic. Gandhi talked about this idea, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in service. And so when we are giving to others, when we are providing that responsibility that we have to our neighbors, there is joy in every single moment of it.
Awesome. Like I think you sort of share just like the essence of what service is. It's just the idea of paying it forward, but also the gratitude that's associated with service, because at any given moment, things can change in our lives. And I think as we're kind of going through this moment now, I think unfortunately so many people are sort of seeing that. But I want to kind of pivot a little bit and jump fast forward to just your time as CEO of AmeriCorps. For those who may not know, it's just an agency that's really rooted in strengthening civic engagement, community impact nationwide. But I know within those times, there are particular moments that really like stand out to us. That's kind of let us know, like, this is why I do what I do. Mike, would you mind sharing if there a particular moment that truly captures like what AmeriCorps stands for, and what it meant to you, just more individual?
Absolutely. You know, I was actually reminded of this recently through my new job where I serve as CEO of Eckerd Connects. I was down in Asheville, North Carolina, where we have a program called Caring for Children, which is a foster care services program that not only cares about the young people that are being placed, but cares about supporting those families as well. And I heard stories about the most recent hurricanes where you had that horrible flooding that happened about a year ago in Western North Carolina. And I heard stories of members of the Eckerd team whose lights were out for weeks, in some cases months. They didn't have lights, they didn't have running water. But you know what they did? They went out and found water, food, Pampers, milk, to make sure that our foster families were taken care of. And that reminded me of how I first got to know AmeriCorps. I was actually working at the Case Foundation, and Gene Case was chair of President Bush's Service Council, the Council on Service and Civic Participation. And we were down in New Orleans about a year after Hurricane Katrina, which I can't believe was 20 years ago. We were down there. We were with the Corporation for National Service team, which as the agency was called at that time. And everywhere we went, we saw the AmeriCorps A. And when we would walk into a store and an AmeriCorps member was with us, people would stand up and applaud. People would hug them. People would cry. And the reason was, a year after Hurricane Katrina, long after many cameras had left, AmeriCorps never left. AmeriCorps had 40,000 AmeriCorps members that served in Katrina and in Louisiana and Mississippi in the 10 years after Katrina. And so my first really getting to know AmeriCorps was seeing this. We don't care about fame. We don't care about fortune. We are going to do the hard work. We are going to muck and gut your house. We are going to hug you when you are crying. We are going to be there for you through thick and thin. And so that spirit stands out to me. And I actually saw that probably about a year or so ago. I was down in Florida. I think it was after Hurricane Irene. And the number of people that I met whose houses had been destroyed, but they were helping their neighbors rebuild their houses, like that's the AmeriCorps I think about all the time. People who are just so selfless, that are giving their last and are there when the going gets tough and well beyond.
I mean, that's definitely speaks to AmeriCorps, that consistency, continuously to be there through the thick and thin. And it's like really cool to hear like people were applauding for AmeriCorps members that they're just kind of helping and giving their all. And I think that just symbolizes what AmeriCorps means on so many different levels. I'm going to kind of jump a little bit into what something that was like personally exciting for me, Michael, is that when you were appointed the director or CEO of AmeriCorps, I was extremely excited. I have to just kind of honestly say that. I want to kind of ask a little bit about just like what that experience meant for you and the role your identity played leading in AmeriCorps. So we'd love to just like ask, like, how has your identity kind of helped and influenced the way that you lead, make decisions, and open doors for others? Like, again, like I was so excited just to hear that there was a Black man leading AmeriCorps. So I would love to just like hear how your identity helps influence your work.
Look, I think we all bring our whole to every space that we're in. If we don't, I think we're trying hard to leave aspects of it. And I bring every piece of me to every job that I have. I haven't had success in my career because I'm the smartest person, because I come from a wealthy family, because I am the most connected or went, to the most elite institutions. I think I've had any success in my career because I'm willing to work hard, willing to put the hours, willing to do the job that anybody else will do. But I think it's also because this work isn't academic for me. Like I experience it. So when we were having a conversation at AmeriCorps about living allowances, and there were some AmeriCorps members, many AmeriCorps members when I started, who were only making $6 an hour, that's not like a spreadsheet for me. That's like, I knew I would not have been able to do it because my family wouldn't have been able to afford it, and someone wouldn't have been eating. And so I bring that to me. When we really focused at AmeriCorps about service to career pathways, that's because I spend time proximate on the ground with these communities. And it can't just be a one-off feel-good experience. Like, oh, I feel so good about the service that I did. This has to be a springboard into something that's going to allow you to continue not only to serve, but to have a family-sustaining wage for your career. Because this isn't just the fun thing you do because, daddy's going to pay for your mortgage. And so that is what it means to me. It's this idea about bringing your whole space, your whole self. You may know I lost a brother to gun violence, my brother Tori, when he was 27 years old. At my office at Eckerd, at my office at AmeriCorps, Tori's picture and my other brothers are on my desk. So I never forget where I come from and what I am working for, so that this never becomes an exercise in transactions or bottom lines, but it is about the people who need not only second chances, but first chances, and who need to live in a world where opportunity and talent are equally aligned.
Thanks for sharing that and also just highlighting how those lived experiences help you navigate this world, but also just decisions that you make as a leader. I think like that's so important to understand. Like it's that we need to bring our full selves to our work. It's the only way that we can do it in a way that's kind of true to the work and also true to ourselves. So Michael, like you've served in spaces from the White House to the Obama Foundation and now at Eckerd Connects. I want to kind of double down a little bit on just some of those leadership principles. Are there some things that you can say have stayed consistent across all environments and that you would say that are just like core to your leadership experience and the way you approach leadership?
Oh my goodness. So many things. One, just what we were talking about, staying proximate, staying close to this adage that people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. I grew up low income. We didn't have a whole lot, but thank God I've been able to pay my bills and put food on my table for a long time. And so that means to me, I am no longer the representative in the room about what it's like to be low income and live in America on low wages. So I need to create space to make sure those folks are at the table. I need to make sure that women are at the table. I need to make sure rural Americans are at the table. I need to make sure Native Americans are at the table. So staying proximate to the communities that you serve. Otherwise, you're going to create solutions that are not aligned to the challenges that folks are facing. I also think about making sure that I hire people that are smarter than me. You've had a chance to meet Trish, who's our head of external relations and public affairs. I know a little bit about it, but I need someone like Trish, who actually was a lobbyist for many years. I need someone like Alex, who's our chief operating officer, who's been doing that work for 20 years. I need an HR director who is smarter than me in those spaces. And so when you find that you are the smartest person in the room at the time, you need to fire somebody and hire somebody else. You've been doing something wrong. I also think about, I was recently reading Jack Eckerd, who was the founder of Eckerd Pharmacies and the founder of Eckerd Connects, along with his wife, Ruth. I was reading his book, and he was talking about when he was CEO of Eckerd Pharmacies, he felt bad sometimes on how hard he drove people and how hard they work. And I guess around the holidays every year, they would do a restocking before they had all the technology that made it easier. And he said, I was right there with them. I was in the trenches, rolling up my sleeve. We would spend 12 hours restocking those shelves, counting things. And so no one would ever say that I did ask them to do something I wouldn't do. And so that is something I bring to the table. And then I would say, lastly, just focusing on impact over activity. Throughout my career, I have really thought about evidence-based approaches. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere else. With Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and have different results. And we have to make sure, especially in the nonprofit community, we're not just getting caught up in stories, something that makes us feel good, but I want to see the data. So at Eckerd Connects, I have a dashboard. I have a dashboard that says, did that young person who went through our Job Corps Center, or do they still have a job 6 months later? Is that person that's in one of our residential academies, did they improve their reading scores? Are they moving into family sustaining wages? And so we have to look at the data and make sure that we're making data-driven decisions and that we're not just getting caught up in this idea of activity and success stories, but that we're really looking at measurable, tangible impact.
Yeah, I think impact is always important, but I think there's so many forces that are working to limit impact. I think it's important that we're really keen to the impact that we're making in our community. So it's really awesome that Eckerd Connects is sort of leading in that way. And I think it's a great segue to talk about your work there at Eckerd Connects. And I know it supports thousands of families every year just across the country. I know within the work, there has to be things that just excite you. And I would love to just hear, what about the work at this point? I think we've heard some tidbits of it, but with the abundance of responsibility that comes with leading an organization of this size, what excites you day to day? What gets you going? I would love to hear that.
Oh my goodness, there are so many things that excite me about Eckerd Connects. When I was approached about this job, I hadn't heard of Eckerd before, and which I was surprised because I've been doing work in the workforce space and, certainly pathways to opportunity for opportunity youth, and I hadn't heard of them. And part of the reason I learned that I hadn't heard of them is because they had this value of no one needs to know about us. We just need to work hard and do the work. And I love that. I'm also like a communications person at heart. So I'm like, okay, we can do both. We can work hard and also make sure that people know about us so other people will tell us that they want us to come to their community to do that work. And what really excited me about the opportunity, a couple different things. One was this focus on opportunity youth, this focus on creating career pathways that just wasn't about giving someone a certificate, but making sure that they can move into family sustaining wages and change the trajectory of themselves and their families. I was also really excited about the history. We've been around for almost 60 years. We were founded in 1968. So we broke some things. We failed and got back up and tried again. We started doing wilderness camps in 1968. We still have a couple things that look a little bit like that, but we evolved and we moved into different spaces. And so I was really excited about taking that near 60 years of experience and applying it to the challenges that we're facing today. So across our work, we touch about 200,000 people a year. We do workforce development. So we run one-stop shops and workforce development partnerships with cities. I'm actually wearing our Denver Workforce Development Partnership shirt today. That's run by Eckerd in Denver. We run children and family services. So we have residential academies for adjudicated youth in North Carolina. We have early childhood programming in Central Florida. We have foster care programming in Western North Carolina and Kansas. And so the work is broad. And we are also the only nonprofit operator of Job Corps centers. So there are about 11 Job Corps centers. We are either the lead or secondary operator all across the country. So I'm excited that I get to see lives changing every day. And what's cool about that, I love the traditional 4-year college and university. Good for me, good for so many people. But you can come to our Job Corps centers or one of our workforce development programs, and within 6 months to a year, we're going to make sure you have a certification, a credential that's going to move you from potentially making $12 an hour to making $25 an hour. We're going to get you onto a welding track, a construction track, a pharmacy tech track. I actually just met a young woman who was going through our workforce development program in Denver, who wanted to learn to get her CDL. And while getting her CDL, she actually decided, I actually want to run a trucking business. It's launching a business where they're going to be drivers working for her. And so I get to see that transformation every day. Also, because of our scale, because we're in 20 states in the District of Columbia, touching 200,000 people, we get to try new things, and then we can take it to other states and scale and experiment. And then the last thing I would say is we are moving into this space where we are not only going to be doing direct service, but we're going to be solving systemic issues. So we're going to take all of that work that's happening on the ground, that near 60 years of experience, and look at systemic solutions so that we could, one day maybe work ourselves out of a job, that we can get to the root causes and make those serious population level changes.
Awesome. I share in that excitement. Just kind of doing my due diligence. I learned about Eckerd, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All of the different variety of services that are available, but particularly the workforce development piece, particularly as we see our economy changing and shifting, and the importance of a trade is so important now. So to know there's programs like that that are invested in building that bridge for individuals, like really dope and cool. I kind of want to segue a little bit. You talked about just like young people and just ideas getting people ready for like what's next. I want to like dive into that a little bit. So when you think about young leaders who want to make an impact, but may feel like they're just not ready at this point, I know there's programs like Eckerd to help them go along the way. What guidance or mindset would you share with them to let them know, like, hey, just keep pushing, like you will become ready? Any words of wisdom there?
Well, it's so funny. I remember I've been fortunate. I've had leadership roles at young ages throughout my career. And I can't remember what job I was transitioning to, but I was like, oh, I'm so young in this role. Are people going to respect me? And a mentor of mine said, Michael, you're not as young as you think you are.
I've heard that.
That I appreciate it. But, I remember really early on when I was very young in a leadership role at Case Foundation, I put pictures of folks on my wall. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers. Those poor men weren't even 40 years old before they were assassinated and have shaped my entire life. I recently read Vernon Jordan's book. Vernon Jordan, by the time he was 40, had been the CEO of the National Urban League and the United Negro College Fund, and then worked with Martin and Medgar and all of those folks on massive civil rights mobilizations. And then at 40, he went to become the incredible business and political leader he was. And so remind yourself, young people, that real change in this country has always been led by young people. The 20-something years old, 30-something year old. Sadly, I think we learned last week that Dick Cheney had passed away. He's in a different political party than I am, but I think Dick Cheney got his start in the Nixon administration when he was like 30 years old. And so remind yourself that there is something that you have. There is something in that vigor. There is something about new ideas, new experience, being willing to try things, to fail, to get back up. That is beautiful and wonderful about young people. So just like run for it. And the other thing I will say is that adage, stay ready and you don't have to get ready. I remember President Obama talking to some of My Brother's Keeper mentees who they were asking him about confidence and how do you stay confident? He say, you stay confident because you did the work. You studied, you prepare. Is it soccer? How many times did you practice this week? It's not like a mind game. It's like, did you do all the things? I was at a talk with Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Darren Walker, the outgoing president of Ford Foundation, said, you've seemed really confident. You don't seem to have imposter syndrome. She said, imposter syndrome? I did all the work. I went to schools that I was supposed to. I did these kind of cases. I did this kind of studying. I'm ready. And so stay ready, do the work, do your homework, think about the things that you're reading, the mentors that you have, the people that you're talking to. And so one, you're not as young as you think you are, and history has always been made by young people. Malala is another case in point. And do the work, and that will help to sway any confidence issues that you may have.
Thanks so much for sharing that perspective. And as you were kind of sharing some of those names, it kind of made me recollect, like, yes, those are young individuals helping to make drastic change. I agree, like lean on your work and feel confident in that. And I think the term imposter syndrome is something that's very prevalent, maybe more now than ever, but just that adage you shared there, lean on your work and trust that the work that you put in is always a good way to approach it. Michael, as we start to lean towards concluding our podcast, we have a segment where we ask our guests to highlight a service titan in their life who have made an impact on them, whether that's small or big. We'd love for you to have an opportunity to shine a light on a service titan in your life that you would like to kind of uplift them during our podcast today.
I would love to. And if you would give me the liberty to give you three really, really quick, because we're talking about Black men, I just took a moment to think about who are the Black men that have been those service titans for me. I so often, when I think about the people that moved me, I talk about my mom, I talk about Carol Rawson at the Boys and Girls Club. You know, the first Black man that I remember who I saw as a service role model who made a difference in my life was Mr. Dawson, who was the head of the Boys and Girls Club at that time. Mr. Dawson had spent his life in military service, and after military service came to Springfield, Massachusetts to run this Boys and Girls Club that once was only a girls club and only a boys club, and he brought it together and he grew it to great places, and he was a mentor and a coach. I remember one time I had a bad report card. He looked at my report card. He's like, "Damn, Smitty." And he got me a tutor. And so I think about Mr. Dawson. And then very recently, I think about Jim Shelton and Broderick Johnson. Jim Shelton is currently the CEO of Blue Meridian, and Broderick Johnson, senior executive at the Comcast Corporation. Broderick was my boss in the White House. He was President Obama's cabinet secretary, and Jim Shelton was the deputy secretary of education. And for the first time in my life, I was working with people that were bosses to me. Jim wasn't my direct boss, but pretty close, who just had my back, who looked out for me. I could pick up the phone and call them, who told me when I was going down the right track or encouraged me when I needed to go further. And I just think about at that age, what an extraordinary blessing it was to have these men that I could look up with who were servant leaders, who put their all into their work to this day. You know, Mr. Dawson that passed away, but Jim and Broderick continue to be my brothers and my mentors that have meant so much to me.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing that. It's always great to highlight those who've made an impact on us. I appreciate you for really leaning into that. Before we conclude, Michael, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners? Perhaps your social media handles, any projects you're currently working on, or things you think people just may be interested in general?
Well, I would love for folks to learn more about Eckerd Connects. You can go to our website at eckerd.org, ECKERD.org. And there you can find all of our social media handles. I think we're on everything except for TikTok, and we're going to get on there soon. So come and learn about the work that we're doing. Find our programming near you. As I said earlier, we're in 20 states in the District of Columbia. So we hope we can make some new friends, and we can find a way for you to work with our programming across the country.
Michael, again, truly thank you for taking the time to join the podcast, for sharing your insights, your experiences. Listeners, be sure to connect with Michael on the platforms he highlighted. And with that, until next time, keep the conversation flowing, keep service front and center, and continue shining bright in your communities. This is Service Titans. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the inspiring journeys of Black men in AmeriCorps. Keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media. Until next time, stay committed, stay courageous, and keep striving to make a difference. This is Service Titans, where every story told is a testament to the power of service. Thank you for listening.